It's Wednesday, March 4th, and this is an end of day review on a position I took earlier today involving the ProShares Bitcoin ETF, ticker symbol BITO. And as of today's close, the ETF ended the session at $10.07 per share. Overall trading, it was up 67 cents per share. So the Bitcoin ETF, it's not pegged directly to the Bitcoin that's continuously trading 24 hours. Rather, this ETF is pegged to the Bitcoin futures. So right here in the top center is the actual ticker for the Bitcoin futures /BTC. And since the futures market started trading earlier this evening at 6 p.m. Eastern and well into its fourth hour of trading, it's currently down a little over $500. But the spot price is $72,880. And because I'm anticipating a further continuation higher, considering that the Bitcoin futures was up almost 7% today, which is reflecting in this weekly candlestick right here, I'm speculating that over the next few weeks, it's possible that price could run up, running to at least retesting $13.50. So the horizontal lines, the light blue horizontal lines are, from my perspective, reasonable support and resistance levels. Local support is $8.84. We can see here that as price was selling off, there were multiple weeks where price was trying to break back above $13.50 and ultimately lost momentum, fading back to the downside. And for the past few weeks, about past month or so, $8.84 appears to be holding as a strong support level. So as price was pushing higher today, I thought this was an ideal opportunity to participate on this potential reversal to the upside. And to help me navigate this, I was also using this tool called the Fibonacci time extension, which requires 3 anchor points. So from this broad look back, we can see that price was pushing higher in the ETF via Bitcoin futures, via Bitcoin itself. So this move to the upside started around the week of October 2nd, 2023. And here the ETF was quoted around $13.75. And then we see price ultimately hitting an all-time high of around $33.80 by the time of March 11th, 2024 came about. But then it subsequently sold off. It appears that this could potentially be profit-taking. And then here we have a run-up, creating a lower high. So we have a high here, right, which is represented here. We have a high, and then we have a lower high represented by this candlestick, pushing price even lower, and that led to another lower high. So it appears that price is stair-stepping or walking itself to the downside. But for the past month or so, it appears to be consolidating, finding support here. So using each of these high points or lower highs as an anchor point for this tool, so using this candlestick here for this tool, it's the Fibonacci time extension, this tool right here. So that's anchor point 1. Anchor point 2 is, again, this weekly candlestick, which is pegged to the week of December 16th, 2024. And then the third candlestick here is pegged to the week of July 14th, 2025. So once those 3 anchor points are pinned, this vertical purple trend line is pegged to March 5th, which is tomorrow. So if there's going to be a potential breakout based on this very speculative assessment, if today's move was the start of this potential bounce to retesting 1350, then that was the reason why I entered a bullish position on the ETF. I didn't trade the actual Bitcoin futures nor the actual Bitcoin itself. I opted to trade the ETF, and I'll get into the details of that in a little bit. So, with all things said, now that I have a time frame for this potential breakout to occur, heading into tomorrow, again, I thought this was an ideal opportunity to enter the trade. And this white line, it's just a visual markup indicating where and when I took the trade when the ETF was quoted at $9.89. So the trade is slightly going in my direction at this point. So with all things said, I'll switch over to the trade tab. So here on the trade tab, I do have a position here under the option chain section of this dashboard. There's a flag position pegged to option contracts that will be expiring on April 10th, 37 days away from today. And relative to the closing price of $10.07, as well as the time of my entry when it was still quoted less than $10, down here in the blue, I selected the $10 strike price. Essentially what the contract is saying is that, again, on or before the close of April 10th, I'm anticipating the ETF will be at or above $10. And when buying option contracts and bullish, it's on the call side. So under quantity, because this is all speculation, I kept the trade size small. I've only picked up 3 contracts. All 3 will expire worthless in 37 days. My entry price is quoted at spot 6867. And since entering the trade, the option premium has gone up, closing at spot 735. And as a result of that move, the P&L, the profit and loss side of the ledger, as of today's close, is reflecting a positive balance of $14.50. And if I click on the timestamp here, I started building this position. The first 2 contracts I picked up was when the option premium was quoted at 71 cents. And this was around a little after 10 a.m. And then a minute later, when the premium dropped a little bit to 64 cents, I picked up that third and final contract. So that is a breakdown of those transactions. So now that I've highlighted my bullish outlook on Bitcoin through this ETF, as well as the current status of this trade, the last thing I want to quickly touch on is what the cost was for these 3 contracts. So here in the description it says 100, as well as in the description of each option chain. So the 100 represents the number of shares each option contract is holding. So the 3 contracts would be akin to holding 300 shares of this ETF on the bullish side and for the $10 strike. So again, when I took this trade, the ETF was quoted less than $10. So to get the actual cost of this trade, I need to take my entry price of spot 6867, multiply that by the 100 share multiplier. So that means each option contract, it's actually valued at $68.67. A large premium relative to the current spot price of this ETF. But I am holding more shares with this one contract than if I was to have picked up 6 shares of this ETF or 7 shares. So having picked up 3 of these contracts, not including commission, I'm risking $206 for the prospect of a bullish run on the ETF to at least $13. That's my ideal target price. The $10, because it's now almost par with the ETF, that's essentially considered at the money. I need to have this ETF valued at around $13 or so. The higher the better, as that would increase the profit. Now, the alternative was to pick up 300 shares of this ETF. So using 300 times the closing price of $10.07, the risk exposure alone would have also been greater than my $206 committed to this trade, as that would have required a little over $3,000 worth of capital. And also, had I traded the future itself, again, the margin exposure would have been a whole lot more significant. So that is the rationale that I am trading the options rather than the actual future or actual Bitcoin. So that's the status of all things. What I'll do is I'll pause it here, of course, but I'll give it a few days, let the trade work itself out. And until something more significant does occur, I'll update accordingly. So, a quick status check. Today is Saturday, April 18th, and this is a follow up on the ProShares Bitcoin ETF option trade. And you can see here yesterday at the end of the week, the ETF ended the session at $10.63 per share. We can see here that the candlestick did break to the upside above my $10 strike price. And because of an oversight on my part, I did not close the option trade. So what happened was my contracts were exercised. And because of that, if I switch over to the trade tab, so right down here, I own 300 shares of this ETF. And the timestamp shows that these contracts were converted to common shares on April 11th at 2:13 in the morning. And 2:13 in the morning, if I switch over to the calendar, was last Saturday. So the market went in and converted my option contracts to actual common shares. And I've been holding on to these ETFs, common shares, for the past week. Again, this was all due to an oversight on my part. But I am speculating that this uptrend could continue, possibly retesting this next or upper resistance level of $13.50. So I'm just going to be patient. I'm going to hold on to these shares until price breaks above $13, and at that point I'll reassess whether I want to hold on to these shares even further for the prospect of a higher price in Bitcoin. Speaking of which, Bitcoin futures. So right here in the top center, this is the closing price on the Bitcoin futures at 77,545. So when I did the initial review, the Bitcoin futures was at 73,445. So it's a positive change of $4,100 in the Bitcoin spot price, which equates to a $1.25 move in the ETF since I got into this trade, because I believe this was my entry price when the ETF was quoted at $9.89. So that is a lesson to be learned. This was, again, the reason why I recorded this was for educational reference. If this assessment was to have worked, and it appears to have done so, because, again, when the market breached or went past the March 5th timeframe, the purple vertical line, price is gradually working its way back to the upside. But there is still room to speculate that this consolidation phase is still ongoing. So what I'm referring to is that it's possible that price could continue ranging sideways inside this area right here. But I'm going to just be patient, hold on to this, give it a few more weeks, and we'll see how this goes. So far, this indicator, Fibonacci time extension, appears to have value, but again, it's still early. So we'll end it here, and I will check back in another trade setup, potentially.